2003, and we're in the home of Louis Roark in Wamego, Kansas at 615 Ash Street. And I will be interviewing Mr. Roark today. My name is Dean Schoengert, coordinator of the History Project in Pottawatomie County. Mr. Roark, when were you? You were born in February the 23, 1918.
Right.
So how old are you?
I'm 85.
You're 85.
About 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, okay.
Well, 3.
Well, that, and when did you enter the service?
September the 4th in 1940.
So that means you were in for Pearl Harbor then.
Yeah.
And what?
We got it next day.
Next day?
Well, next 2 hours. About 8 hours after that, when they got us.
Uh-huh. And, well, let's start off with what you were doing before you got in the service.
Well, work was pretty scarce back in 1940. And I was just doing common labor around, a young man, just trying to get started, and there was no work or anything, so I just joined the Army.
You were in Oklahoma at the time, or?
No, I lived in Gypsum, Kansas at that time. We came to Kansas about 1930.
I see.
From Oklahoma.
So where did you go first?
I went to the Philippine Islands directly.
Directly? No
Just
training or anything?
No, it was September the 4th and November the 1st I was in the Philippine Islands.
My goodness. How did you get to the Philippines?
Rode the USS Grant, 21 days on the seas.
Was that your first time on a ship on the ocean?
Oh yeah. We took our physicals and everything, and shots and everything, and in McDowell, Fort McDowell, and San Francisco.
What was the crossing like?
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember a whole lot about that. We didn't have any excitement or anything like that. Nothing out of the way happened or anything. So I just.
Where did you land in the Philippines?
Manila, Pier 7. And then went from Manila right directly to Corregidor, which is just across the bay.
Oh.
And I was there the duration of the war. That is, the duration of our war. Philippines, we capitulated in May the 6th, 42. So I went to Manchuria then.
So
and I was up there at the duration.
So you were on the Philippines for close to 2 years, and then the Japanese attacked. Did you do any fighting there in the Philippines, or?
Oh yeah, the Corregidor was pretty well noted for its anti-aircraft activity. We shot quite a few planes down. But they got going out of our range and we couldn't reach them.
Was that the days of MacArthur?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you know about his leaving the island?
Yeah. He left the island. Well, it was sometime before we capitulated. I can't remember just when. It was a month or so or something like that, some weeks. Then General Wainwright took over.
So, can you tell us about that capitulation? Was it the commander just decided you were to stop, or
yeah,
a pretty well organized thing?
Wainwright just figured we ran out of food. We didn't have any food to start out with. We was short ration just the day the war started. We started on short rations. And We just ran out of food. And ammunition, we didn't have any ammunition either. Our equipment was all World War I stuff, so we wasn't doing very good. Planes got up out of our reach, and so he just cashed them in.
So, did the Japanese come right away, or was it sometime
Yeah.
later?
Yeah, they came in, they come on Corregidor about, first of May, something like that. We just lasted a few hours. We capitulated to 6, so that was, I think they probably took us overnight. We didn't have much defense.
So then, how long were you in the Philippines before they took you out?
That was May, and we stayed in the Philippine Islands. We stayed on Corregidor for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, and then they took us up to Cabana de Juan, Philippine Islands. That's where we had. That was an old Filipino artillery camp, and we was there till October.
What was life like for you then? Were you getting fed adequately?
No, we started out not getting fed adequately. We had in that camp we had rice to eat, but that's about the height of it. Water was pretty scarce.
The weather hot?
Weather was hot and rainy and sticky. I was in Camp 3 and Cabana de Juan, and O'Donnell was the worst place. That's where most of our casualties were, down there. We had about 37% mortality rate.
This is as prisoners?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was north of Corregidor or O'Donnell, you said?
It's up in the northern part, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to Baguio or someplace up in the north part there.
These were casualties mainly from starvation and just inadequate
dysentery, diarrhea.
What'd you say, 35%?
37, a little over.
Then what happened?
Well, we stayed there to do a ration, and no, I'm wrong. We went to Manchuria on October the 1st, about October the 1st. We got on a freighter. Took about 30 days to go from Manila to Fusan, Korea. We floated around out there, dodged some torpedoes and stuff. And then we got we rode a train then from Fusan up to Manchuria.
That would have been still in 42 sometime?
That was still in 42. We got to Manchuria November 11th, 1942. In our camp there.
Were all the prisoners from the Philippines?
No. There was only about 2,000 of us. The rest of them went to various places, Japan mostly, I'm sure. That's where you read about those hell ships that was bombed and everything. They were on the way to Japan or someplace like that when they were bombed. We were attacked a couple times by torpedoes. One time by torpedoes. But you could see them coming out there, but I don't know whether the captain maneuvered that ship to get around them or turned into them or just what happened, but they dissipated just before they got to us. So that's about the only thing we had any problem with.
That was on your way to Busan.
Yeah.
Were those torpedoes from airplanes or
No, they were from
subs or
U.S. subs.
submarines?
Submarines. I can't remember which one.
Mm-hmm. That must have been, what, a 3-day ride on the train to get up to...
Yeah, about that. Mm-hmm. That's where we got the start of lice. I mean, that's where they started. We had lice from the word go. We got them. I imagine we got them on a boat. That boat ride was pretty rough for a lot of people. But I don't know. Somehow or another, I was put in the hole, but somehow or another I got out of there. I don't know. It was just so I don't remember how I got out of there or how I stayed out. But I stayed up on the deck my whole trip over there. But you want to turn that out? We can turn it out.
Well, let's try it. See. How were you? What were you sleeping in? Do you have any kind of cots to sleep in, or
On the boat?
and then at the camp?
Well, on the boat, I sat on a housing of a winch line all my 30 days, afraid to get off there because somebody'd get my place. But in camp, we had, well, if you can imagine that sink, that over there, the sink coming out, right out this way, it was about 6 foot that you slept on. We had a straw mat that we slept on. But we filled it with grass out there, and if we could get out in the yard somewhere, and that disintegrates pretty quick. So the mat we slept on was pretty thin from there.
How did you fight the lice?
It froze out up there in Manchuria. You could hang your undershirt out there, and in the morning it just looked like pepper. It froze. So they froze out. That's what happened there. Now also, I think the malaria did too. There's a lot of malaria there that we took up there, but it didn't last very long either. The dysentery got them up there.
So dysentery was the big problem.
Mm. Yeah. And I don't know, the cold weather probably helped us a lot up there, especially with the fevers and stuff like that. Because it sure gets cold in Manchuria, you know that. Close as you were.
What kind of clothing did you have for warmth?
Well, first winter we had pretty good. They gave us Japanese stuff, clothes, but as they wore out, clothing got pretty thin.
Shoes?
Shoes were hobnail shoes, and then in the summertime, they got to where they didn't put out much shoes. People made their own shoes. They had them clogs that they made out of a piece of board or something other, and put a strap over the feet. And you see them wearing them in the wintertime. Some of them got pretty handy at carving out shoes to fit. But I never did. My shoes seemed to last.
From your U.S. uniform shoes? Lasted the whole time?
No, the shoes they gave us.
I see.
Yeah.
Were you getting food 3 times a day, or how were you?
Well, we had something 3 times a day. We usually had one staple that we'd had. They got the food from the Chinese up there, and that's what we ate from the Manchurians. And we had they'd get soybeans, cornmeal, and stuff like that, but they'd bring it in by loads at a time, and you eat that 3 times a day till it's gone, and then they get something else. And you eat that 3 times a day till it's gone, and it's, as a rule, it was pretty soupy.
Who was doing the cooking?
The Americans cooked ours.
Oh.
You know.
So did you have details to do that every day?
They had the same, you might occasionally get KP, but most of us worked at the factory there, and of course they had work details to stay in and take care of the camp, so they had their pretty regular help in the camp.
Tell us about the factory.
Well, factory was what they call a tool and die factory. It was, the Yanks built the factory, got it going when we got there. Put tools up, they had the tools. They had great big tools. They had lathes as long as this house that come from Ohio somewhere. We set those lathes and one thing or another set them up over there. I don't know whether they were new. I don't remember whether they were new or whether they came from somewhere else. But we set them up in that particular place.
You mean this equipment was there before the war, perhaps? And
I don't know just what it was. We set it up. We set up the equipment there, and a lot of it,
and it was mostly U.S. equipment, that's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, that tools and all that stuff come from Ohio. And we set those all up. Got the factory going. And they made some parts for planes there, some aluminum part. I never did figure out what it was for, but it was for the planes, airplanes.
Well, did you have Japanese supervisors?
Yeah.
They checked out your work and so on?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it was just keep us busy, really. The work that we did. I never did anything that amounted to anything that I could see. But you could learn a trade there if you wanted to pay attention to it. They fed us one meal at the factory, which was the main meal.
You each had a mess kit that you ate out of every day, or how was that done?
Bowls. We didn't have any plates. We had bowls. I think I had about 4 or 5 bowls, different sizes. You didn't need any plates because food was too thin for plates, too soupy. So we had a knife and fork. Well, we had a spoon. I guess we didn't have any knives. They wouldn't allow that.
So how long are we talking about your stay there at that camp?
I was there from November 1942 until August 45.
Okay. If you look over this way, that's right here. Any incidents in the camp that?
Well, there wasn't much escape in the camp. Some of them tried it, and they showed us that it wasn't a good idea to do that because the way they handled them. it's just kind of hard for me to come up with anything.
Was the camp circled with barbed wire and
Oh
guarded?
yeah, there was. Well, we had a brick wall it was about 10 foot high, and there was electric wire on top of that, and it was guard houses in every corner, and it was manned. The guardhouse was manned all the time. And there wasn't much use trying to escape because there wasn't no food or anything. Them Manchurians was bad off as we were because they didn't have nothing.
Do you get any news, world news or news from home?
No, we never got any news, and I never got any news from home until just just about the last 6 months or so, or something like that. I got a couple of cards down in the basement I got on the wall down there that I got from home, and that's all I ever got, was just Christmas cards, I believe, in about 1944, 40, 45, 44 probably.
What was the hardest about that experience in the camp in Manchuria?
Well, it was the food and the cold weather. I think it's probably the hardest part of it. But I don't know, I was always pretty lucky. I kind of thought I could take anything for about 6 months, and I figured when that 6 months come along, I set another 6 months. So I was never sick. That's one thing. Even all of the sicknesses around there, I was never sick or anything. I don't think I ever missed a day's work being sick. Of course, you learn to not fall out unless you're about half dead anyway out of the sick line, because sometimes it's better to go on to work than it was to stay at home. What they'd have you doing. Berry was a bad thing for us too.
Weren't getting any fresh vegetables, so that's what.
I don't know. I think we had an egg, I think, one time. They pulled a big deal and gave us all an egg apiece, I think, boiled egg. And that was all of that. They never deviated much from cornmeal mush and soybeans. And we had a Milo maize, it's kind of like our Milo here that they cook up.
Do you like gruel today?
I like, yeah, I do. I like soup. And people say, well, you probably don't like rice. You had so much of it. We didn't have any rice up there. They just gave us staples that they grew up there in Manchuria. And we had a lot of just boiled Milo maize. Sometimes you'd have that 3 times a day, and for a month or so.
You mentioned making wooden shoes. Were there any other creative things that?
I didn't. There was a lot of other guys did. They made their own shoes and stuff out of wood of some kind. Some of them made them big enough that they could drill holes in the bottom of them and sneak cigarettes in or tobacco into camp in them.
Where would they get the tobacco?
Well, the Chinese. They had a lot of Chinese working at that factory there. That they used them as supplementary guards too, and they'd trade with the Yanks if the Yanks had anything to trade. Quite a little bit.
You weren't getting any kind of care packages or anything like that?
I didn't get any till, well, it was in 44, late 44. They had them over there, but they didn't distribute them until, and they had medical supplies too, but they didn't put that out. There was no medicine. So the guy that got anything was kind of in trouble to start out with.
So I understood you say it's almost better not to go on sick call.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Did they have a separate infirmary where they put sick people?
They had a place where they had a building where they kept them, but there was nothing there. I was fireman at that, trying to keep fires going in the infirmary that we had, but they didn't have any medicine. They didn't have any pills or anything to give you. We had 14 British people, and they were in charge of that. But like I say, they didn't have anything to give you. And
these British were also prisoners, or
yeah, mm-hmm.
They just were assigned to the medical.
They were from medical corps in their
see.
outfit, so they naturally took over the hospitals, that we call them.
Did they come from the Philippines also, or were
they came from Shanghai? They were taken over there, and I don't know how come they got them together, but maybe that was the reason. I don't know. We had 2 or 3 doctors, I guess.
I understand you to say there were like 2,000 of you on that ship.
Yeah.
And when you got up to Manchuria, how many were there in the camp then altogether?
In our camp there was about 1,400 in our camp. And this, going over there, I think there was, only about 1,400, but there was another camp that had officers in it there. And when the war got pretty close to over, well, they brought the officers over there, and that made about 2,000 people there.
How did you find out that the war was over?
There was a cadre of about 7 intelligence people, I suppose, that parachuted into our camp. We looked up and saw them parachuting in there. Well, they didn't get in our camp because it was too small, but it was just outside the camp. And they had documents and everything that convinced the Japanese that the war was over. Then after that, the Russians came in up there, liberated us in that particular camp.
Well, these parachutists were Japanese or American?
No, they were Americans.
Just 7 or 8 of them or something?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they finally convinced the Japanese that they had documents to show that the war was already over.
Mm-hmm. So then what happened? Did the guards leave and you were just left on your own? Or?
Yeah. They just turned over we took over the camp. Then the Russians came in right away after that.
Right away.
And they turned the camp over to us. Mm-hmm. It was up there about 3 or 4 weeks before we went out. Shipped out.
How did you get out of there?
We rode a train. That's something that's completely left me. I don't know how we got down to Busan, Korea. We went back down there and got on the ship, but I don't know how we made that trip. I've completely forgot. But that ship that I see in the TV the other day, that hospital ship, It's over in the waters now. Was the same one we came out there on, out of Busan.
Really?
Yeah, we got on that.
What have you done with the rest of your life after you got out of the military in '46?
Well, I got out of the military and I believe I said the 18th of March, I think, and I went to work for the telephone company the 26th. So I didn't stay out very long without going to work. And that's what I did the rest of the time. Retired in 1978. Most of the time was in Manhattan.
Pearl Harbor before the Japanese attack?
I don't think so, because well, it happened so soon afterward. I'm sure that some of them do, but I don't know whether I don't remember whether I did or not. But
what was your assignment at the time of the attack?
I was we had four anti-aircraft guns in our outfit, and I was on what we call a director. It's a data finding machine that got the data from various places, transferred it over to the guns. What I was on, we had 3-inch anti-aircraft guns. They go about 3,000 feet. The Japs went up immediately to about 5, but we couldn't reach them. But before that, we knocked some planes. I saw planes right out of the air, knocked right out of the air. We got some of them.
That first bombing was pretty devastating.
Yeah. They, of course, we were out in the field, but they got all of our barracks and everything just about with the first bombing, and so we were out in the field all that time.
Did they get our planes on the ground too?
Yeah, Clark Field. They got 50 B-17s, and we had 54, I think. So they got all but 4 of them. And I think they immediately took off for Australia, getting out of theirs.
Well, thank you very much for your relating this experience with us. And, glad that you appear to be in still good health after all that.
Just had a physical the other day. No sweat, he said.
You didn't have any teeth problems or anything from your diet or while you're in camp?
You say, do I have problems from the diet I had?
No, while you're in camp, did you have, what if you had a toothache or?
Well, you lived with it. We had a doctor there that you go with him with just about anything, and he'd say, breathe steam, 5 minutes every 20 minutes. But he didn't have no, I think he just, psychology, I think he was working. He'd make them mad, and he'd decide they'd live anyway. But he didn't have nothing to give them.
I didn't understand your statement. Breathe?
Breathe steam, 5 minutes every 20 minutes.
Oh, breathe steam.
Yeah. Yeah.
What kind of fuel did you have at the camp?
Well, we had coal, but it was very poor grade. Winters were pretty cold.
Okay, well, again, thank you very much.
Yeah.